What's up, guys? This is Wenzes. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about creating an epic life on your terms. And today we're talking about how to kick the NITI loop to the curb, how you can stop sabotaging yourself once and for all. And I really believe that the NITI loop is first off the biggest hurdle and the biggest roadblock when it comes to INFJs really succeeding in their lives. I believe it's the one that is most misunderstood, and it's the one you're most likely oblivious of doing. So I really want to go deep on this topic so we understand not only what it is, but how you can use it to your advantage, what things you can stop doing right now, and therefore improve your life to a new level you've never reached before. Before we get started, I want to remind you, if you want to take the next step in creating an epic life on your terms, sign up to the Epic Life Masterclass or work with me privately. All the information you find below. So let's first talk about what an NITI loop is. NI, as you all know, is introverted intuition, and TI is introverted thinking. This is the first and the third function of the INFJ functional stack. And the thing is this, you have dominant tertiary loops with all the types. I've seen it with ENFJs, I've seen it with ESTPs, I've seen it in all of them. And it's really interesting to study them. But for now, I want to just really get to the point of what we can do to change it and why we're doing it in the first place. So in other types, you see it, for example, in ENFJs, that they go way into FESE, meaning they're all over the place. They really let out all of their emotions and they want people to accept them for the kind of emotional atmosphere they create. This is like an unhealthy example of this. Let's say Justin Bieber a couple of years ago, perfect example for this. But when it comes to INFJs, you really see it in, of course, the other direction. So being way too introverted. And this is so much deeper than you might think if you just see, oh, you're too introverted. So you just stay inside and you think about stuff over and over again, or you try to understand things. This is really just the surface. This is the one thing that can cause you to really have reality breaks. This is the cause of really deep depression. And it's really the main cause of you not moving forward and asking yourself why you feel so alone, why your life doesn't make sense, why all the things are missing that you wish you would feel. It's really bypassing the second function. And the biggest problem, I would say, is that you're not taking in any more information. And I see this over and over again. This is really the one thing I see people do for years and they're not getting out of it. And it's not that I'm that naive to think that I don't do this at all, but I see the difference. I see what I was doing 5 years ago, 4 years ago, even 1 year ago, and how I get better at this. And every time I get to reduce this aspect of my thinking, my life really improves. And I'm not just talking about how you feel. This happens automatically as a byproduct. I'm saying my real life improves. That means my relationships are better. That means I have more income. That means I have more freedom. That means I get to talk and speak about things that really matter to me, and the impact I have on the world gets better. Right? So this is why I want to talk to you about this, because you can do this too. If I can do it, you can do it. But it's important to understand what we're doing wrong here. So as I said, introverted intuition and introverted thinking. The loop is that you actually keep on doing those two things without going through the second function. The second function in our case is extroverted feeling. And please don't understand what FE is really about. It's not about creating harmony. It's not about making other people feel understood or seen. This is what you can do with FE. These are the results you can get with FE. But very often this is actually not the thing we should be doing, because creating harmony means I'm not disrupting what's already going on. And in a lot of cases, we're not doing it not because what we see is already so beautiful, but because we're so afraid of adding our own FE, of our own values. Because whatever is going on in your NI mind, and maybe you have even thought it through TI, so you already got a system in it, you already understand how your life is working on the inside, as long as you're not expressing that, and you're expressing that through FE. So by you living out your truth, right? So you showing up no matter where you're at, and not hiding who you are. So showing the aspects of you that you really like, talking about the things that really matter to you. See, a lot of people and a lot of INFJs believe that you just showing up and being the most authentic you and really not hiding who you are. So not trying to make people think you're really kind, or not trying to make people think that you're really intellectual or that you got all your stuff figured out. But I really mean just showing up and being as excited about your own life as possible. You just showing up there, that's what creates FE. The way you speak, You know, 95% of everything we express in ourselves is non-verbal, so this happens automatically. But most of the time, we are hiding this aspect. We're hiding it because we fear abandonment, because we fear it's not good enough, and we fear that once we actually express that, what happens? You cannot take any more information in, and that will actually make your TI not be able to synthesize as much as it wants to. I'm gonna give you an example on this because it might get a little tricky. So let's say you have a person in your life that you're romantically interested in, and you want them to understand that you're such a good person and you understand them so deeply and you can bring so much value to their life, and you do that by really trying to understand them deeply. Similarly, it can be that you want to understand your boss really well, so you can be the best employee he has ever had, that you're there to actually support his vision, and therefore you get promoted, and it's a win-win situation. See, in most of those cases, the intentions are not bad, not at all. They don't have to be. Of course, when you have this person that you're interested in and you want to understand them, it's because you want to help them to some degree. But never ever underestimate that you're also doing it for what it will give you. You're doing this because you want that person to think you're kind, that you're smart, that you're there for them, that you're bringing them value. Because on some level, we believe that this is the only way we are gonna be liked. The truth is that we deserve to be liked, to be loved, to be respected for us being ourselves, for us going on our road, on our adventure, on creating our epic life. Yes, we have people on the left and on the right, and we're gonna be there for them. But if you are not okay with you fighting for yourself and to be okay for that person to like you for that, you're way more likely to get into the NITI loop, because this combination gives you the illusion of understanding that other person better. But when you get to a point where you know, I don't need to convince anybody of anything, I don't need them to really like me, I don't need them to think I'm cool or great or whatever it is, because I know I am, because I'm doing the things that make my life better. You stop going into this NITI loop in order to understand them, you do your own thing, and then the people will like and love you for you loving yourself. This is actually all of it in a nutshell, right? This is actually, if you understood this concept, you wouldn't even worry about the NITI loop, because you already know what the right direction is. And the right direction is, of course, to step into your FE and your SE more. But let's go back to the moment where the NITI loop is still present. What happens in that moment is that you absorb everything you know about that person. That is what NI is about. It's a sponge. You have this vacuum and you really allow all that information that that person gives you to come into your system. That is what NI is all about. You pick up so many cues of how the person speaks, what they really talk about, how they show up, how they hold their body posture, whatever it is, it's all NI, and you really absorb all of that. TI is the function that gives sense to all of it. Before that, it's just information and it doesn't mean anything. TI, so your introverted thinking, really gives context to the situation. So everything you've learned so far allows you to put this in perspective. It's similar to saying, I'm listening to a new language I've never listened to, or I've never heard, or I have no connection with, let's say Chinese. I have no understanding of Chinese language. So let's say I would listen to that. I would still hear the sounds, I would hear the syllables, that's it. If I would have learned Chinese so far, it would be my TI who makes sense out of everything. It's my TI who understands that this person was just saying, hello, how was your day? Right? This is TI. And it's the same thing if you have that person next to you. So let's say somebody you're romantically interested in, or your boss, or a group of people. So even if you're, for example, at your job and you just want to be part of the group that is already there, your NI takes on all the information and your TI tries to understand it. And what happens in most of the cases is that at some point you hit a roadblock. Meaning you feel like, okay, so I've done everything that they wanted. I've done and showed up as the person who would fit perfectly into this group. I've done it all, and they still don't accept me. They still don't think, oh, she's so cool, or he's so smart, or that person would be such a leader. They don't. So what has been wrong in my thinking? And this is where the NITI loop starts. What you do at this moment is that you try to understand it even better. You don't put any more information into your system, or maybe if you do, it's because you try to absorb even more. You try to actually remove everything else from your life, so you allow more NI information to come into your system, although you probably already absorbed 98% of everything you could, because NI is like that. you get it right away. Yes, maybe when you talk a little bit longer to a person, when you have more information, of course it fills up more and more. But you try to make meaning out of it and you go deep, deep, deep. So you try to understand even more details about that person so you can get a better understanding of how you can show up and give them what they want. But in most cases, if it doesn't work out in the beginning, so in the first 5 minutes, or for example, let's say that person thought you were so great and then for some reason they left you. They have no interest in what you have to say anymore. And you're trying to solve that situation. You try to understand it even better. You will get further and further away from reality because you're not putting anything new into your system. You're just trying to understand it better. But TI is not that strong in you. It's the third function. You might feel like, oh, I'm so great at this. I can understand systems so well. Yes, you can. Nobody says that you can't. But if you would have a really, really strong TI, you wouldn't stand in that situation and would try to understand that person because your TI would be strong enough to say, well, this is who I am. If they don't really want to be around me, then there's no reason for me to try to understand this. If your own understanding of who you are in a concept is really strong and solid, at some point you stop trying to understand. Because the truth of the matter is that for some reason you have made some kind of conclusion that is just wrong. This is where our TI really messes with us. Because let's say you see that person and you think, oh, me and that person, we could have this great future together. Why don't they understand me? And you try to understand them better and you really narrow it down. You get more ideas and more details when you've been wrong all along. When there's been some kind of conclusion that you've made along the way that really got you on this road and this road doesn't lead you anywhere because otherwise you wouldn't keep doing and trying to understand this. And this can be about not just people. It can be that you have this task and you feel like I have to understand this task perfectly because it's not leading to a solution. So what do? You go even deeper of trying to understand it and get more details when the mistake has been made way before because your TI is just not that strong to make the right conclusions at any time. If you only rely on this. As I said, this does not mean that you can't have success in your life, that you're not really smart. It doesn't say anything about it. You can be really smart and have TI as your third function, but your intelligence is not used in the best way possible for you because you're neglecting to actually step into FE. To actually create an environment that allows you to use TI as much to your capacity as you need it and not more than that. FE is your strength. FE is stronger in you. FE is the thing that will actually allow you to get new information into your system. And it doesn't leave the door open for your TI to just go crazy and to think things through over and over again why things happen. For example, let's say you're in an emotional abusive relationship. Your TI would be the thing that would think, what have you done wrong? You've done everything to make that person happy. Why are they not happy? This is your TI going over and over again. When your FE should be the thing that says, listen, there is an emotional atmosphere that I will actually create. Remember, the second function is your creative function. So you say, through my FE, I'm gonna create an emotional atmosphere that is solid. And I'm not allowing anybody to cross that or change that about me. And if this atmosphere is you feeling I'm good who I am, I don't feel guilty because I'm not doing everything for that person, I don't feel responsible for everybody, and I don't need to think through why that person is actually a good person and why they have such good intentions, and the list goes on and on. I already know that if somebody is treating me in a way where I don't feel good about myself, I close the door. I don't allow my NI to be even more open and take on information that I know is not beneficial for me. Because if you try, you will find a way to make that person be the good guy in your scenario, although they are treating you badly. And the same thing is with somebody you're interested in. Why in the world would you keep using your TI to trying to understand them when they have already shown you that you being yourself and not trying to understand them is not enough for them? You need people in your life, and it doesn't matter if it's your boss, it doesn't matter if it's your friends. You need people in your life who want to see you succeed, who want to see you happy, and they want to be around you while you're actually expressing yourself the best way you can. And most of the time, when you're in situations where you have to actually tap into TI, it's because you're not living out your FE. You're not living out who you really are. You don't want them to see that. Because you feel the moment you actually make them see that, first off, they're gonna stop sharing, so you're not gonna have more information and you can't really understand them better. And secondly, they probably will abandon you because this part of you is actually not that nice. This is what we're so scared of, specifically if you actually use FE in combination with SE. It can be so hard to get this concept through to people. I know it was really hard for me to accept that because I remember years ago when I was really in the biggest NITI loop of my life. This was probably the time 2 years prior me starting this channel, 2 years when I really said that's it. I had a reality break. I had completely numbed myself out. I've taken myself out of reality, as in the only way I really interacted with my environment was really the bare minimum. I always wanted to listen to music because it would help me escape from reality, and therefore I could actually absorb even more of other people's emotional state through my NI, and TI could understand it. And I remember to this day that my best friend always came up to me. She is an INFP, and she said, "Why do you need to understand what's going on?" And no matter what she said, I didn't care. I knew that there's some magical thing that I would understand that would make my life so perfect. And because I have this gift of understanding people so deeply, that I had to find a solution. And I had to find it through actually thinking about it over and over again. I was overestimating my third function. I was overestimating that I made a mistake in my thinking early on. And that mistake was to think that that person could actually bring value to my life, and that it was completely okay to neglect myself and to focus on them. That in itself is already a TI solution. It's already something that was in my system. Back then, I lived by the rules of you're a martyr, you neglect yourself, therefore you can help others. This is how you function. People like you because you focus on them, because you bring value to them. You're the only one who can understand him, and that's how you're gonna get love. That's how you're gonna get respect, how people are gonna like you. Because I didn't have the self-confidence to know if I focus on myself and I do what I want, this isn't going to be enough. This is what I thought. I didn't have the confidence to think it is enough, right? So I kept on doing this, and so my system was already flawed. It was, because those were the things I lived by. Nowadays, I know there's always a better system I get to create. But in order to do that, I need to actually fill up my system with new information. And I do this through actually being more into my SE, as in I see the reality for what it is. I move forward in that reality. I create something new that wasn't in my reality so far, because being around new people, having new experiences, improving in any kind of capacity, no matter what it is, allows me to have new information that I can put into my system. And at the same time, and this is probably the most important thing, there is a barrier of FE I have set. There's a part of me that I allow to be influenced by other people's emotional states and the way I interpreted that through my TI. But the moment I said this is it, there's really this part of me that I'm not sharing with anybody. And I remember back then reading this comment, I think it was Mary J. Blige, and she talked about heartbreak that she had early on. And she said, there's a part of me I just don't share with anybody. That is just me. This is not something that is open for discussion. And I remember vividly how I read this and I thought, what a horrible life. How can it be that you don't want to share the deepest parts of you with others? What is my life worth if I can't do that? And I've had really intense, loving relationships when I was younger. And so I was addicted to this. And I thought this is the worst thing you could do. Like, what kind of life do you have then? Now I know it better. And I really don't think I'm bitter. I actually have learned to love myself. Because if you feel like your NI is this vacuum, it allows you to absorb so much of other people. There's this part of me, the deepest part, that I get to love, that I get to decide how I want to feel in here. Because if you allow everybody to have an influence on the deepest parts of you, you also allow that your deepest part feels bad about yourself, that you're full of shame, full of guilt. Because if you have somebody who wants you to feel bad and you allow them to enter this part of you, this is what's going to happen. And that person might do it not because they're bad people or they want bad things for you, but just because they feel that themselves. And you absorb that part into you. And the moment you set up this FE barrier, it means that there is an emotional atmosphere that you create that you're gonna show up with absolutely every person in your life. So I mean your mom, I mean your kids, I mean your best friend, your partner, your boss. There's one part of you that is just not up for discussion. And this is something you have to set for yourself. Because once I got into the deepest part of the NITI loop, let's not forget that you really go more into FI as well. So this is a shadow function. I know in MBTI we don't really speak about that, but if you look into socionics, you understand it more. You get more and more emotional. Everything gets melodramatic, everything gets really intense, and there's a beauty in it. And we get addicted to that, but it just keeps making you more miserable, maybe more emotional, but more miserable and sad. The solution is actually the FE. It's actually something that might seem superficial at first. It's a version of you that says, I need to be respected. It's a version of you that says, I need to be heard. It's a version of you saying, I deserve people to be kind to me. And you go through life and this is just not for the bait. And this can feel extremely superficial, it can feel scary, and it could feel like a lie, because if on some level you feel like, well, it's okay for people to treat me not kindly, because on some level I'm just not a kind person, you allow people to treat you like this. It might feel like you're putting on this mask. So I'm supposed to go through life and put on this mask. Isn't that me not being real and me not being myself? Yes, it is. This is exactly what it means to be yourself, because you're not hiding this part anymore from anybody. You know that this is something you have decided for yourself. You have said, this part of me, I'm gonna love for myself. I'm gonna set the direction here. For this is how I wanna feel. And this is so uniquely you. It's also an emotional state that you just decide how you wanna feel. And in the beginning, as I said, it might feel like you're putting on a front, but before you know it, this front has become part of your identity. And this front isn't a front at all. It's just you loving yourself and saying, this is how I'm gonna show up in the world and this is who I wanna be. And part of the thing that I started actually living out was also my SE, my extroverted sensing, in a way of my strength. I didn't show up as somebody who could take so much. I showed up as a version that was strong, and people were supposed to see this. When before, I didn't want to actually show up with that version of myself that is strong, because I felt people would think I'm unlovable, I'm way too harsh, I'm selfish, I'm not kind, I'm not thinking about others, when in the end, all I wanted to do is just for others to make me feel like I'm a good person, for others to give me the feedback and the appreciation that I really am kind and philosophical and deep. But if you already know that you are and you don't need other people's validations, you're gonna show up in a different way. Because I know the best way for me to really help people is not to stay stuck with people over here that really don't treat me well just in order to get their feedback that I'm a good person, that I'm really taking care of them. I actually know, no, I'm gonna cut this off, because this might look like I'm not a good person. That person might even feel that I'm not a good person, but I know I am. And because I know I am, I love myself enough to cut this off, to set up this FE world that is really undebatable of me showing up in a way that will not change, that is something how I feel the best. And because I do this, I get to actually help more people. I get to help people who actually want my help, who appreciate my help, and who help me grow even more so I can help even more people. So this is the system of the cup that's overflowing. So start small, but start. Because this is the thing that most people are completely oblivious to. It doesn't matter if you're an INFJ or another personality type. Stepping into the third function and neglecting to actually live out your second really messes up everything. So this is really something that I started to do actively. I've found ways to express myself, not just verbally, but me to show up in the world and to have more impact. And it does not mean that you have to be in the public eye or anything like this. It just means that you keep getting in situations, you keep talking to people, you keep improving your environment, the people you hang around with, whatever it is that is important to you, your job, that you get to improve all of this. And through that, you get to apply more of who you really are to the world. You contribute more and more, because who you are, what you have to offer, that's a gift to the world. It's not something you should be ashamed of, because the more you neglect yourself, the smaller you make yourself, the more you try to dim your light so others can shine, the less you're actually giving to the world. The world needs you. It needs your energy. It needs who you really are. It needs you expressing yourself in the best way you can right now. And through that, you create this positive circle of influence. You feel more alive. You feel more connected, because then you're really connecting with absolutely everybody who wants to connect with you, with this deepest part of yours that you have decided to be. And you put that out there. There are aspects of you that you know very well who you want to be and how you want to be treated. This is not something you have to worry about, oh, I don't really know who I am. Yes, you do. On some level, you already know, and you already know things that you might even be oblivious about. So for example, you want people to respect you. Everybody who doesn't respect you, stop trying to understand why they don't respect you or what you did wrong in order to cause that. Yes, you might make a couple of mistakes by not thinking things through, but in the long run, in the big scheme of things, you'll create so much better things. You don't need to understand everything. I don't need to understand somebody who's being emotionally abusive towards me. I don't need to understand what happened here or why they've become this way and that I should help them. No, because this is going against this version of myself that I have said I will create. And this version of me doesn't allow this. It's okay. You don't need to understand everybody and everything. Rather focus on expressing yourself and you'll see how your life will start making sense. Much more than you ever thought it could. Really tried, because this is the holy grail. This is why I'm so passionate about what I do. This is why I have the 5 pillars to an epic life system, because through expressing yourself in combination with extroverted sensing, as in using your force, using to make a difference in the real world, you really get to create a version of yourself that keeps contributing, that keeps growing, and makes you happy. So if you haven't done that already, download the free poster on the 5 pillars to an epic life. And if you're ready to take the next step, sign up for the Epic Life Masterclass or work with me privately. All the information you find below. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, watch my video on the killer combo. FE and SE will rock your world. Like always, guys, I wish you a wonderful day, a great week, and I talk to you next time. Bye.